At the 101, Bijan Robinson. And there is no doubt about it. Bijan Robinson is the undisputed 101 for Dynasty rookie drafts in the year 2023. It does not matter if you're in a 1 QB league or a Superflex league. Bijan Robinson is your 101. He's going to a Falcons team that runs the football, and they run the football really well. Despite Tyler Algier having a very positive end to the 2022 season, Bijan Robinson is going to be the bell cow back for the Falcons. And he is the kind of running back that you need, not only if you're rebuilding, but even if you're in contention. And even if you have to trade 13 draft picks to trade up for the 101 to get Bijan Robinson, it is worth it because it is rare to find bell cow running backs in the NFL anymore. Most teams, they just surrender to a backfield by committee. And he's also going to get work in the receiving game as well. So, Bijan Robinson, I do want to address this in redrafts, as he's been going pretty high in redrafts that I have seen. I feel like if you're in the back of the first round, then I'd be comfortable going with Bijan. But if I'm at the beginning of round 2 and I take a receiver first, then I'd be okay with it. So, 101, undisputed 101, Bijan Robinson. At the 102, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now, I made a video a month ago on who should you go with at the 102, Jackson Smith-Njigba or Jahmyr Gibbs. While you can't go wrong with either of those picks, I like Jackson Smith-Njigba better than Jahmyr Gibbs for the 102. And the reason why is because receivers are easier to build around in Dynasty. As running backs, they get replaced all the time. And even though I find Jahmyr Gibbs a bell cow back, which I just talked about with Bijan, on how you rarely see bell cow running backs in the NFL anymore, receivers, they are much easier to build around in Dynasty. Plus, Ohio State wide receivers, they are money in the NFL. I cannot think of one Ohio State wide receiver that has been a bust. Now, it may look like Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be the number 3 option Seattle begin the season behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. But Tyler Lockett has been inconsistent over the last few years. And I think at the very least, Jackson Smith-Njigba will become the number 2 option in Seattle by the end of the year. Now, am I surprised the Seahawks took a receiver with the 20th pick in the draft? Not at all. In fact, in the last couple of mock drafts I did, I had Seattle going with the receiver at pick 20. Did I think that Smith-Njigba was going to fall this far off the board? No, I did not. But as soon as he was on the board at 20, I just knew it was going to go to Seattle at that point. And this honestly kind of reminds me a few years back when the Cowboys took CeeDee Lamb in the first round, where he started off as a number 2 guy to Amari Cooper in Dallas. But then, in short time, he became the number 1 option. And I think maybe 2 years from now, Jackson Smith-Njigba will become the number 1 option for Seattle. At the 103, Jahmyr Gibbs. A month ago when I made that video debating on who to take with the 102, Jackson Smith-Njigba or Jahmyr Gibbs, I received a comment in the comment section talking about how there may be a possibility that Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't become the bell cow running back that you rarely see in the NFL anymore. In fact, the comment was, I like your video, but I don't think there's any chance Gibbs ever becomes a workhorse 3-down back. He only weighs 199 pounds. I think the Lions know this, but they also see how explosive he is. And taking him number 12 overall means they're planning to get him the ball plenty. I'm guessing day one plan to use him like Alvin Kamara got used with Mark Ingram early on, or like Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams were used, or even now how Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are used. which I responded back. The NFL is a copycat league, which makes sense. And then I talk about how I can't believe they allowed themselves to get ripped off by the Eagles in the DeAndre Swift trade, but that's a different story. Jahmyr Gibbs, the 103. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs, rightfully so, deserved to be the second running back off the board. But I am a little bit surprised that he fell off the board early. And the fact that he went off the board this early, it just shows that he's going to have a immediate impact on the Lions. Now, how much of an impact, I'm not 100% sure. But I'm guessing that he may get cheated out of some goal line work with David Montgomery. As they signed David Montgomery to, I believe it was a 3-year, $18 million deal. So if you're going to have somebody on your roster for 3 years, you're going to get the most out of him as possible. So the first 3 picks are really a no-brainer. In fact, arguably maybe even the first 4 picks. But the 104, I think this is where kind of we start to get some debates going. At the 104, Jordan Addison. I've seen some debates on who should be the second receiver off the board in dynasty drafts. Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston. I think Jordan Addison is going to have that Adam Thielen type of role in Minnesota. And I think despite Adam Thielen's production going down once the Vikings traded for TJ Hawkinson, I still think he's going to have an opportunity to have a really phenomenal season. In fact, I would not be surprised if he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he has that kind of potential, as I do think he's going to have a very big impact on the Vikings passing game, which should be a very fast tempo, a very pass-heavy offense. As the Vikings, they did nothing to improve their defense. Even though they hired Brian Flores as a defensive coordinator, they didn't make any effort in the draft to improve their defense. So the Vikings are going to be a lot of back and forth kind of games, which that's what you like to see when you have a receiver on a very pass-heavy team. In fact, I think Jordan Addison, I think he'd easily get 600 to 800 receiving yards pretty easily, maybe even 900 potentially, and maybe 6 to 8 touchdowns. So that would be a pretty solid rookie season for Jordan Addison. At the 105, Quentin Johnston. Now, Quentin Johnston to me is the 105, but it's very close for him being the 104 over Jordan Addison. And who knows, by the time draft day rolls around, Quentin Johnston will be my 104. Who knows? But Quentin Johnston, he's in a very good situation to succeed. And he could easily have that opportunity, as Keenan Allen isn't the most healthy receiver in the league. Mike Williams, he's not the most consistent receiver in the league either. So Quentin Johnston, he may be that number 3 option in the passing game for the Chargers. In fact, maybe even the 4th option when you add Austin Eckler to the equation. But Keenan Allen's getting up there in age. Mike Williams, very inconsistent. It's a contract year for Austin Eckler. In fact, Austin Eckler hasn't really been happy with the Chargers. In fact, 2023 could easily be the last year for Austin Eckler. So I've seen some people say Quentin Johnston can be a league winner, and I think that could be the case, especially if Keenan Allen once again can't stay healthy and if Mike Williams isn't consistent. At the 106, Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers was drafted by the Ravens, who are desperate to find a number 1 receiver. Hollywood Brown showed potential being a number 1 receiver, but they traded him to the Cardinals. Rashad Bateman, he's been dealing with injuries his entire career so far. And now Zay Flowers. It's Zay Flowers' turn to try to become the number 1 receiver, the alpha in that Ravens offense. Although you would consider Mark Andrews the number 1 receiving option, but he's a tight end. We're looking at receivers. I think Zay Flowers has that potential of being the alpha dog in Baltimore. But the question is, how often is he going to get used? If he can stay healthy, if he can have a much different fate than Rashad Bateman has had so far, I think this could be the steal of your rookie drafts. At the 107, Anthony Richardson, also known as Big Ant. Now, at the 107 for 1 QB leagues, I think this is the appropriate time to start thinking quarterbacks. And I do apologize. I forgot to mention in the beginning, this is for 1 QB leagues. Superflex, Anthony Richardson, easily the 102. When I look at rookie quarterbacks, I try to look for who has the most upside to offer. And Anthony Richardson is it for this class of quarterbacks. And he offers that rushing upside, which that is the main inspiration for him being the number one quarterback in this draft class, in my opinion. Plus, he also has Shane Steichen as his head coach, who molded Jalen Hurts into the quarterback he is today. And I think he has the potential of being a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen type of quarterback, as the NFL is a copycat league, as I mentioned earlier. And we are seeing the more mobile quarterbacks get a lot more attention in the league compared to 10, 15 years ago. This may be a surprise depending on how you feel, but at the 108, Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet was taken in the second round in April's draft, which is great. If you're a running back, if you're drafted within the first 3 rounds, that's phenomenal. It's excellent. That means you're going to see a lot of volume, see a lot of touches, see a lot of carries, a lot of work in the backfield. But a big concern is he's behind Kenneth Walker in the depth chart. But I think Zach Charbonnet, I think he has nothing to worry about. In fact, if you already did a rookie draft and you end up with Zach Charbonnet, I wouldn't be worried at all. I think that Zach Charbonnet, I think he's going to be maybe more of an A.J. Dillon or even a Tyler Algier. Someone that's going to be the second fiddle in the running game, but still see quite a bit of volume. But if you're in a tight end premium, then I can understand the argument for going with this player over Zach Charbonnet for the 108. At the 109, Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid was personally my favorite prospect to evaluate throughout the mock draft process. Even though I had Michael Mayer as the first tight end off the board in the majority, if not all my mock drafts, I felt like Dalton Kincaid should have been the first tight end off the board. And in fact, he was. He was taken by the Bills, which immediately he's in a very good situation. Even though he's labeled as tight end 2 on the depth chart in Buffalo, he's going to get used as a receiver a lot. The game against USC last year, where he had 16 catches, that was the moment where I started to admire Dalton Kincaid as a prospect. And like I said a moment ago, if you're in a tight end premium Dynasty league, I would completely get taking Dalton Kincaid not only at the 108, but I would understand taking him at the 107. As long as he's that first tight end off the board, then it doesn't matter. Because he's in a situation to succeed right away. In fact, I think Dalton Kincaid, I think he's going to have, I'm going to predict 7 to 9 touchdowns this season. And I get that tight ends take a while to develop, but I think if there was a tight end to have an immediate impact right away, it's Dalton Kincaid. When you're on a contender like the Bills, in a pass-heavy offense, the sky is the limit. At the 110, Devon Achane. Drafted in the 3rd round by the Dolphins, which mentioned earlier, if you're a running back drafted in rounds 1 through 3, that's excellent. That means you're in for quite a bit of work immediately. Now, it may look like on the depth chart that Devon Achane is the RB3 behind Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. By the end of the season, I'm going to predict Devon Achane is the main guy. in the Dolphins' backfield. Now, there are rumors that Dalvin Cook could be a Dolphin. In fact, a lot of Dolphins fans are really hyping up Dalvin Cook going to the Dolphins. But even if that is the case, Devon Achane, the safest place to draft Devon Achane is at the back end of the first round. Because Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr., Raheem Mostert especially, he's getting up there in age. And I believe they're both only on 2-year deals. And even if the Dolphins do sign Dalvin Cook, I can't see it being any longer than a 2 or 3 year deal. So if you have taxi squad spots, then I'd put Devon Achane on the taxi squad at least until mid-season to kind of see where the Dolphins are at as a backfield, because the Dolphins are kind of one of the more frustrating teams when it comes to fantasy running backs, as they like to use a lot of them. But back into the first round, this is where I'm comfortable drafting Devon Achane. At the 111, Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer was drafted in round 2 by the Raiders. Am I surprised that Michael Mayer fell to round 2? A little bit. But I think the Raiders is one of the better fits for him. He's a good replacement for Darren Waller. Am I concerned that the quarterback situation for the Raiders is unknown at the moment? Not in the slightest. There are rumors that Jimmy Garoppolo may not be a Raider after all, that if he fails a pending physical, then his contract would be null and void. I'm not concerned at all. Worst case scenario, I think, would be Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't pass the pending physical, the contract's null and void, or whatever the case is going to be, and they make a deal with San Francisco to trade for either Trey Lance or Brock Purdy. And no matter who it is, they're coming from San Francisco roots. San Francisco roots are one of the following. Like to use running backs, and they like to use the tight end. Which that would be a dream fit for Michael Mayer. In fact, if it came down to it, I would consider maybe taking Michael Mayer a little bit higher than the 111 if the worst case scenario does have to take place. Now, I don't think it will. I think Jimmy Garoppolo will have no problem passing the pending physical. But Jimmy Garoppolo is also part of those San Francisco roots, even the Bill Belichick roots, where they use tight ends. As Bill Belichick, he used Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez together. So I think Michael Mayer is going to have no problem finding early success with the Raiders. Maybe not this season, but easily next season or the season after that. This is a very good long-term investment. At the 112, Kendre Miller. I felt like I could have put Kendre Miller at the 110 over Devon Achane, even though I think Kendre Miller has the potential of being an immediate impact for the Saints. There is 2 reasons why I didn't. Now, I've seen Kendre Miller be a lot higher in power rankings, or rankings, whatever you want to call it, or mock drafts. I've seen Kendre Miller in some as high as the 108, even the 107. I think a big reason for that is I think everybody is anticipating a Alvin Kamara suspension. Now, we don't know how many games Alvin Kamara will be suspended for. Whether it be 2 games, 4 games, 6 games, 8 games, 12 games, the entire 2023 season, an indefinite suspension. Alvin Kamara gets the, somewhat Deshaun Watson treatment where he's out of the league for 2 years and then comes back for a different team. For all we know, Alvin Kamara could get suspended 0 games. He may not even get suspended at all. It could be something like last season where everyone's anticipating that Alvin Kamara suspension, but it doesn't happen. But if I had to guess, I think Alvin Kamara only gets suspended for maybe 4 games. I'd be surprised if he gets suspended more than 6 games. And even if Kamara does miss some time for suspension, how long will Alvin Kamara still be in the league for? He's only, I believe, 27 years old. And I do think the Saints want Kendra Miller to be that next Alvin Kamara type of running back. But I feel like Alvin Kamara still has some years left for him. I'd say maybe at least maybe 3 to 5. I mean, as much as you think could be stretching it, I feel like it could be reasonable. But who knows? Maybe by the time the drafts roll around, maybe in August, Kendra Miller, I'll have him at the 110 or even the 109, or even higher than that. But that is all I have today. Thank you for listening, and have a great day, evening, whenever you happen to be listening. Until next time.